Here we go, chapter 5. Yeah, it's the motorcycle years. Who knew I was a biker? Not many people are, but because I had to sell my last lovely motorbike to start the business. Yeah, all those years ago, I sold my GPZ 900, got the potato oven made and built, and the rest is history. So I'm currently a bikerless biker. Yep. Yeah, since I was, for years. I think it started when you were a kid, doesn't it? I mean, we used to have push bikes. We used to do like motorcycle speedway. There was a speedway track in Birmingham, great bar. I've only went a couple of times. One of my mates, next door neighbours, he was a speedway rider, and you used to look up to him and think, oh man, he's so cool and that. And it's kind of when you realise as you get older that it will have cost him an absolute fortune to be a speedway rider. It was like BRMB Brummies. They were like the BRMB used to be the local radio. I don't know if it's still going in Birmingham. So there was the BRMB Brummies, and they were the local motorcycle speedway sort of champions. And I think this guy used to ride for them. But yeah, I bet it cost him an absolute arm and a leg with kind of all the stuff he'll have had to buy rather than because I can't imagine a sponsorship would have been that much. But anyway, yeah. So I started. That's when my sort of motorcycle sort of love started, I suppose. I can vividly remember we were on holiday the one year. I think someone had managed to give the folks a caravan, and we went down to Minehead for like a week. And I remember being on the front at Minehead and was just hanging about, looking in shop windows, and I was probably 8 or 9, something like that. And this bike gang came through town, and obviously you heard them before you saw them, and there was all the classic. I don't know what they probably weren't Harleys, but the classic choppers and the proper classic sort of 70s biker look, you know what I mean? Because it was, when would that have been? 75-ish, 74, 75, 76. So yeah, so there was proper, the real deal, and it was like, whoa. One of them moments in your life when it's something resonates, and you thought, oh man, they are so cool. And you just watched them come through town, you heard them, and they just exuded confidence and coolness and sort of that didn't give a fuck attitude. And it was like, and even at that age I thought, that's me, that's what I'm going to be like. And so that's what I became. Kind of still am, but it's funny how certain things just hit you, don't they? So I think a combination of that and the fact that I grew up in the era where there was choppers and scramble bikes and like little custom sort of cycles back then as well, wasn't there? There was the grifters, there was a chopper. I had a thing called a scrambler, which was like a poor man's version of a chopper. Couldn't afford a chopper. Like I've always said, it's not what you ride, it's the way that you ride it. And I'm pretty sure that analogy works for quite a lot of things, doesn't it? So then you fast forward a few years, and then me and my mate Greg, the terrible twosome, probably hear quite a lot of stories about me and Greg in the next coming episodes. But yeah, so me and my mate Greg, we've somehow, I don't know, did we find it? Was it one of his brothers or something? But anyway, we ended up with this old C90, and we basically stripped it down to its barest minimum. So it was basically just 2 wheels, an engine, a seat, and the handlebars. And obviously, a motorbike. Not literally that, it did actually work. So, but yeah, we took off the mud guards, we took off the little front sort of fairing bit of it, everything you possibly could, we took it off, all the plastic shite, and then we just were whizzing around the field opposite my house on it all the time until I ceremoniously crashed it into someone's fence. Took this poor guy's fence out with my knees. So yeah, Greg still pisses himself about that now. I don't know what happened. I just lost control. I mean, you see all these videos nowadays of kids doing that and people doing that all the time, don't you? But I mean, it was happening way back then before we all had mobile phones to record every little detail of our life that we didn't do. But it didn't put me off. In fact, if anything, it makes you more determined to get your own bike. So as soon as I was 17, that was it. Boom, got a loan. I was still only working. I just finished the YTS maybe. So I think I got my first job in Winton Green, and I was just working in a factory, and I was on 90p an hour. 90 pence an hour. Can you believe that, kids? No such thing as minimum wage in them days. 90p an hour. So I was working like all the hours God send, but I still managed to get a loan, and I managed to buy my first motorbike, and it was a CM125. And for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like a factory custom of like a chopper type style bike, And did I think I was the dogs on that? I thought I was like the biggest, baddest, badass bike you've ever seen in your life. I was full on, like, my little bits of wispy hair were sticking out the back because I was growing my hair out, and then there was, I had a cut off denim over the top of my leather pants, leather boots. Obviously, I used to wear German para boots. You could get German para boots then all over the place for dirt cheap, and they were good quality boots. So I used to wear them with leather trousers, leather jacket, and a cut off denim over the top with a few stupid patches sewn into it, looking like a tit. And then I had this big fuck off chain across me chest, like to lock the bike up. And God, I thought I looked mean. I looked like a right tit in reality, but I thought I looked mean. So that was my first my first bike, and that's what gave me the love. And it was that freedom you had. You were out and about, and your mates were still catching the bus to work. You were on your motorbike, and you were going for it. And your weekends, you were never in. So the distances I used to travel on my push bike when I was a kid. Well, you can imagine the distances I used to travel on my motorbike. It was just like I just used to go. Didn't know where I was going. Just used to go down lanes, go down roads, follow. Just end up in all sorts of weird. I've ended up in Wales once. It's like, how the hell did I get there? I was actually by the sea. It was like, what the hell have I got here? And then getting there is the easy bit, innit? You're just like lost in the moment, but then getting back's the hard bit. And I've just managed to and obviously still on L plates, you can't go on the motorway, can you? So you've somehow no such thing as sat nav even in them days. So I was just kind of like following road signs to kind of places I've heard of. No map or nothing. No provisions. Just me, my motorbike. Probably a bit of money to get a bit more fuel in the tank, and that was it. I was off. So, but yeah, it was them were the days. Freedom, and I think that's what any biker will tell you. It's the freedom of a motorbike, and it's that you get that sort of zen moment when you're at one with the bike and the road, and it's just like, unless you've ridden a bike and you know it and you felt it, you can't explain it to anybody. You've got to do it. It's kind of like it's impossible to explain that sort of oneness feeling that you feel with the bike, and every turn and you're banking into every corner and everything like that. It was just it's such a beautiful experience. And I think also what you got to remember then, this was sort of like 1985, 86. Back then you didn't need to pass any sort of test at all before you got onto any sort of anything up to a 125. You literally just had to send off for your provisional licence from the post office. You got the form from the post office, sent off for your provisional. That came through the post a few weeks later. Boom, off you trot. Go and buy yourself a motorbike. Away you go. And then I think it lasted 2 years. So I had about a year on L's. It gave me enough time to save up for my test and to get a bit of experience on the road as well. Which isn't a bad thing, because considering I didn't pass my car test until nearly 10 years later, I think it's made me a far better driver than I would have been if I hadn't have had all those years' experience riding a motorbike, day in, day out for nearly 10 years plus. So anyway, couldn't wait to pass my test. So like I say, I eventually saved up to pay for it, and I used one of them Star Rider courses where they said you could pass in a weekend or get your money back. It was a bit on the pricey side, but I thought it's going to be worth it. So you pass the motorbike test in them days was in 2 parts, so all they could guarantee was the first part, as it turned out. But anyway, the first part, it was at the obviously being from Birmingham, there's a massive motorbike history in there. So the old BSA factory was used as part of the course for passing your part 1 on your motorbike test. So went up there, and you got, I think it was like all day, all morning, you were going around all the cones and doing all the things, and having to stop within certain cones and putting your left foot down and blah blah, doing everything you needed to do. And then in the afternoon you had your actual test, and lo and behold, you passed, no bother. Then the next day you went out and you were like just riding around town with an intercom, and they were just checking out your positioning in the road, where you was, doing left-hand circuits, right-hand circuits, and just giving you a heads up on what the test was going to be like. So, well, even though you couldn't have that test because you had to go through the DVLA, the proper test people. So, anyway, Past that bit, no bother. Sent off for me actual part 2 part of my test, which is the part that can get rid of the L plates on. Gets that part of the test, and then in them days, it's not like it was now. I think nowadays there's a guy on a bike follows him with intercoms, and he's this, that, and the other. Whereas in them days, it was just you went to the car driving test centre. You were the only biker in there because everyone else was sitting there. You would turn up in your leathers and everything else. Obviously, you're there for a motorbike test. Guy comes out, calls your name. You go out. He says, "Right, I want you to go down the road and go around the block on the left-hand circuit, and I'll just pop out every now and again and make sure you're doing it right." So I said, "Right," and then did that. No bother. He stopped me. He says, "Right, now I want you to do a right and go around the block on the right-hand circuit." So basically, was turning right every time you could, and you came back to pretty much where he was. So then he says, "Right, brilliant." He says, "I want you to do an emergency stop." He says, "What I'm going to do," he says, "you do a left-hand circuit," and he says, "and I'll just basically jump out at you off somewhere on the circuit." It's off. Great. So you go around doing this left-hand circuit again around the same block. And then the geezer just kind of jumps out of a bush at you. He's all, fuck. You have to stop your bike without skidding and put your foot down and keep it in control. He says, "Right, perfect, well done." You pass that bit. He says, "Right, ride yourself back to the test centre. I'll meet you there." And it wasn't that far. I mean, that bloke did not want to walk that far. No way did he. So you ride back to the centre. You get in there and you're waiting for him outside. He says, "Right, doing all right." He says, "Right, now, we just want to see you can test your eyesight." And you just had to read the registration number of a car, I don't know, a few hundred yards away. He says, "Right, perfect, yeah, great, you've passed." So that was an amazing feeling. You thought you were riding the world's biggest chopper anyway. Now you've got no L plates on it, so now you really are a big ass biker. So you were like, I was riding home. I was like high as a kite, man. It was the best feeling ever. You know what it's like to pass your car test and then pass your bike test. It was insane. It was like, whoa, this is fantastic. And it also meant I could just buy a nice bigger bike if I wanted to. So, but obviously at first I had to pay the loan off this bike, so I had to get that paid off as quick as I could. But I used to go to all these bike places. So there was one down, where was it, Hawthorne Road? I think so. There was one down there. There was a few bike shops all in a row, and then there was another load down sort of Sparkbrook part of town. So I used to go down there, and every Saturday, and you just kind of there was hundreds and hundreds of bikes just lined up. Imagine the whole of King Street in Penrith just full of motorbikes. That's what it was like. So I think there's a place similar to it in Newcastle, or there used to be. So, but there was a couple of places in Brum like that, and there was everything there, from knackered old MZs and Cossacks with the bloody sidecar still attached onto them, and up to brand spanking new sort of GSXs, and you name it, everything was in there. And there was gear, and everyone was there was loads of bikers just hanging around outside and all up and down, and it was like a proper old school sort of mechanics in there. Do you know what I mean? It was bang on, and you just used to love sitting and looking at them. And it was pretty cheap as well, because there's some, like I say, there was some old nails there, but there's some real nice bikes as well. So I think I've got a few bikes from there in the past. So anyway, I eventually got my bike paid off on my CM, but I kept going for a while, and I kept it. Yeah, I must have had it for 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years. It's got to have been to pay the loan off. So paid the loan off, then got another loan to buy the bigger bike, and jumped straight from that CM125, and I got a GS550 hardtail custom. If anyone knows what a hardtail is, you'd soon know what it is when you go over a bloody pothole. But what a bike that was. Kind of like a bit of a Street Fighter sort of look to it. Man, that was cool. And so noisy. It's like the baffles used to just fly at the back end of it every time you were going along, and it was fantastic. The bike runs I used to go on that. We used to go on bike runs even on our 125s, but then when we got the bigger bikes, there was a couple of us that had bikes, and it was awesome, absolutely fantastic. And some of the places we used to go to, they weren't particularly biker bars per se, but we kind of they were what's the word? Favourable. It's the wrong sort of word. They were what's the word? Sympathetic. They were sympathetic to bikers. So a lot of places wouldn't let you in. So, but yeah, these places we used to go were very sympathetic. But we also used to go to some of the proper sort of biker hangout bars. Not quite the titty twisters of the world, but they were up there. They were proper biker bars, and it was kind of like just not in the middle of a desert with vampires in it. So, but yeah, so it was them were the days, and we used to knock about with. There was cycle tramps, and there was the 69ers, and guys like that, and they were the MCs in town. Then there was the Volvo, which was the Hells Angel chapter of. They were based in Wolverhampton, though, the Midlands. So I never really saw a lot of Hells Angels patches when you were in town. It was always the cycle tramps and the 69ers. I'm guessing now. I mean, man. So what was this? 86, 87. So we're talking. God, nearly, what's that? 40 years nearly. Jeez. So, anything could have happened by then. God, it's probably all been patched over by the Angels now, to be fair. So, yeah, but those were the days, riding around on your bike, being free. It's out of this world. I mean, even in the middle of the winter, when you're riding in the snow and you've got your two wheels stuck in the ruts of a car in front of you, and your boots are like either side, and even them days were good. And the days when it's absolutely freezing cold and it's pissing down, and you've got for my waterproofs, then I had these wax cotton, the old Belstaff suit. So I had this old Belstaff jacket and a Belstaff sort of wax cotton boots for it, and I had these massive, like, old police style gauntlets that were enormous. They used to they were all like wizard capes, like reverse wizard capes, if that makes any sense. But they kept you warm, apart from your knees. Any biker will tell you that's ridden in all sorts of weather, they'll know what your knees are like when you get off the bike at the end of a longish run. So yeah, many a happy day I've had riding my motorbike. So I think this is as good a place as any to pull over to the side of the road, kick down the side stand, take in the view, and listen to a few words from this week's sponsor. So this week's episode of Spud Life is brought to you by the Alhambra Cinema, Penrith. Located in the heart of Penrith with convenient on-street parking or in the Bluebell Lane car park opposite, the Alhambra Cinema provides a first-class cinema experience, screening all the latest cinema releases as well as independent and foreign language films. In comfortable and relaxing surroundings with Dolby Digital projection and Dolby Digital sound. Wheelchair access is available to all screens, and a large selection of soft and alcoholic beverages are available in the foyer, along with the classic popcorn and chocolate ranges. Also, gift vouchers are available to buy, which can be redeemed for both tickets and confectionery. The Alhambra Cinema, Penrith, your local independent cinema, bringing you all the latest blockbusters all the time. Right, it's time to put back your helmets back on, kickstart your bar bike, and let's get back to the journey in part 2. Yeah, did I have a kickstart? But I think I did. I think the MZ. I had an MZ. Can you believe I had an MZ? Yeah, I had an MZ. Was it 250? Could have been. Man, it was mad. It's like, anyone who don't know, they're kind of like the larder of the motorbike world. So yeah, and I had one. Can you believe it? It was a rat. I ratted it up completely. It was like black camo sort of. Never got cleaned, but it was so reliable. You know what I mean? You dropped it in the middle of winter, it didn't matter. You could just pick it up, start it again. It was two-stroke. It was 250, and it was a two-stroke. Man, can you believe that? But it was this Eastern Bloc Russian engineering. It just was built to last them sort of conditions, and I went all over the place on that even. And you're a biker. It don't matter what you ride. People still nod and acknowledge you. So it was good, and like I say, we went on so many. I was a member of the motorcycle action group called MAG. I had a load of great runs with them. They used to have this really fantastic one every year. It used to go from one side of the city to the other, and you used to go through the whole of the city without your helmets on. So there was about, a couple of 100, 300, 400 bikers all going through the middle of town, and it was just fantastic. There was like a bit of a police escort. There was never any bother. And you'd get on your bikes, you'd meet the sort of north of the city, and you'd ride all the way through to the south of the city, go through all the underpasses. You're only going 20 miles an hour tops. You've seen bike runs, haven't you? So you know what they're like. So that was fantastic. And then we used to have there was always a Christmas toy run. There was an Easter run. And we used to sort of get toys, buy toys, and take them up to the Children's Hospital, Birmingham Children's Hospital. And it was always a big. It wasn't quite as big a run as the big summer no helmet run, but it was still busy, and it was nice to see the nurses' faces and the kids' faces when a few bikers would turn up looking all mean and moody, and we'd just hand over a load of toys for them. Obviously, they knew we were coming. We didn't just rock up, but yeah, it was still nice to see the look on their faces when we all turned up. And obviously, being a biker, anyone who's out there who's ridden and knows, it's not without its few scrapes and worries and things and tests of your sphincter when you go around a corner and the back end goes from you, on a load of leaves or a bit of ice, or you know what I'm saying, especially if you ride one all year round like I did. So the one time I was coming home from work and it was just a nice normal day, and it was one of those zen moments with the bike, So I was coming off the dual carriageway, I was riding along the dual carriageway, and I can distinctly remember it right to this day. I was at one with the bike, and I was going round, and I was just banking nicely, and I wasn't particularly flying. I was well within the speed limit, 50, 60 miles an hour, but you didn't need to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour to feel it, you know what I mean? It's like I said, it's not what you ride, it's how you ride it. So I was there, and I think it was an RD 350, and anyone who knows what they are more than capable of doing 50 miles an hour and double that. So, and it was, I was going around the corner, I was coming off the dual carriageway, and it goes from a dual carriageway into a single road, and it just so happens that there's a trading estate coming off just as it goes into a single lane again, two-way traffic again. So I'm going along, and I see this car pulling out, and anyone who's ever been in an accident, you know what I'm going to say next. It kind of happens so quickly, but also in slow motion. So the car pulls out in front of me. I know it's happening. I can see it happening, and everything just seems to slow down. So I kind of like do the bike to the side, and I'm going to hit her. So I hit her over the bike, go flying over her bonnet and flying over the top of the car. The bike but at the same time I've kind of dropped the bike. I've tried to slide it, if that makes sense, at the same time, but I was too slow. So anyway, I go flying over the car, and I kind of land, go gambolling across the floor, and then eventually the last thing I can remember is the back of my head just whacking the curb, absolutely boof. And it was one of them when you see stars moments. You literally did see stars. So I was lying there, and then I just kind of got up like the Terminator. I bet you thought, what the fuck? Because I was just lying there like what seemed to be for minutes, probably just a few seconds. But then I just it was a cross between the Terminator and Michael Myers at Halloween. I was like, whoop, I just sat bolt upright. And then I just ran straight over to her. I was effing and blind. What the fuck? Didn't you fucking see me? Blah, 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 blah. Giving all the usual stuff. She was just shook up. So then we eventually calmed down, swapped details. Then I got the bike, picked the bike up, sort of straightened the handlebars up. There wasn't a lot of damage to the bike, to be fair. So I was kind of just straightened the handlebars back up, got back on my bike, rode home. And then gets in. And I said to Lynn, she was on the phone. I distinctly remember her being on the phone to somebody. So then I smoked back then. I said, oh, God, I need to have a smoke. So I got a big cigar out. She said, I said, I've just come off my bike, but I've just been knocked off my bike. Oh, are you all right, brother? And I was all right. It was just a bit, I was more shook up than anything, I suppose, once the adrenaline wears off. So didn't think anything of it. Been getting changed. So this was going to be waiting for work. So what time was this? Maybe, say I finished work at 4:30. It was probably 5 o'clock-ish, 5:30 by the time I'd got home. So then had tea, watch a bit of telly, do all the usual sort of stuff, then it's like time for bed. Goes upstairs to bed, starts getting dressed, not a problem. Then all of a sudden go down and start to take my socks off. So I start taking them. All this stuff comes kind of like dripping out my nose, and it was a bit like, it was more pouring out my nose than dripping. Like when you've been swimming in the swimming bath or in the sea, and you kind of like do gambols underwater, but then you come up and water just like streams out your nose. So it was that sort of feeling, that sort of effect. I was like, what the friggin' hell's this? So I was like, putting my hand under there, and I got some blue roll out of blue, and it was like, what's this? It was all this yellow stuff. It was like this bright yellow stuff. I said, I hadn't got a cold or anything. It wasn't snot or anything like that. And I said, I didn't say nothing. So I just sort of carried on, got up, undressed, went to bed. Got up the next morning, same again, all this yellow stuff coming out my nose. And I says to Lynn, I says, what do you think this is? I said, I haven't got a cold or nothing. She said, that can't be good. She said, why didn't you tell me yesterday? I got a bollocking for not telling her. She says, you do. Why didn't you tell me yesterday? So I said, well, I thought I'd just sleep it off. I thought it can't be that bad. So she said, no, that can't be good. She said, we'd better go to hospital. I said, I'm not going to go to hospital and sit for hours and for them to tell me I've got a bloody something wrong with my nose. So anyway, she finally got round to it. She took me, went in the car because she could drive. Went in the car and goes to the hospital. And I said, oh yeah, I said, I came off my motorbike yesterday. I don't know if it's relevant, but all this yellow stuff is now coming out my nose. And they says, oh right. And she comes back with the docs. Right, comes through straight away. Bloody hell! There was like people in the A&E, you know, with the arms chopped off, bloody screwdrivers stuck in their heads, and all sorts of mad stuff. I'm thinking I ain't going to be seen for hours, and then all of a sudden they've rushed me straight through. So get me straight into the X-ray. I'll start X-raying my head. So and they wanted to know if I've like banged my head when I was in the motorbike accident. I said yeah. So did all the X-rays, and then they said, well, that stuff that's coming out your nose, they said that's cerebrospinal fluid, and that's because you fractured your skull. I said, oh. So I had this hairline fracture in my skull, and it turns out that all that yellow stuff coming out my nose was cerebrospinal fluid, which I can tell you now just doesn't taste nice. If anyone offers you that as a drink, turn it down. It's not nice. So, but I don't think you're supposed to drink it anyway, are you? So yeah, and it turns out you can't sleep off a fractured skull either. So yeah, so that was one of my. A couple of times I came off my bike, but that was the worst time I came off my bike, obviously getting a fractured skull. So what happened then, they just filled me full of these antibiotics. They were going to keep me in, but because I didn't have any symptoms of concussion or nothing like that, because I'd already tried to sleep it off. I probably had slipped off the concussion, to be fair. So yeah, and it was just shitloads of antibiotics, because I say if you get an infection in your brain, that's it. And I probably did. That probably explains a lot, doesn't it? So if ever you wondered why I am how I am, now you know why. Fractured skull. So but even that, you know what I mean, it didn't put me off riding my bike. I was still riding my bike for years after that, and it wasn't until we got the idea to start the business that I thought, well, I'm going to need a car. So I then became a sort of normal road user, passed my car test, and then we moved up here, and unfortunately had to sell one of my beloved bikes. I've had so many different bikes. It's unbelievable. Like I said, I've had everything from an MZ, that CM125. I had a CM250. I had a little silver wing. I've had strangely, what one of my most favourite bikes were, and it wasn't a chop or a custom at all, but it was a Kawasaki GT 750. It was a shaft-driven thing, and it was the most comfortable, reliable bike. It had the speed, it had the comfort, it had everything. It was fantastic. Just didn't have the looks particularly, but it's still a nice bike. It's like a nice sort of clarity maroony sort of colour. Really nice, comfortable. Just a big bike, but if you dropped it, you knew about it. In the middle of winter, when you dropped that in the ice and snow, that took some picking up when you couldn't get your foot in. So yeah, that's my biker years. They've given me some good times, some good memories, and like I said earlier, it kind of does make you a better road user, I think, because I think the thing that's kept me alive, so to speak, back then was the fact that I treated every other road user like an idiot, and a lot of them were, you'd get eye contact of them, of people turning out of junctions in front of you, and they'd still pull out in front of you. Obviously, that woman that fractured my skull, that was probably, I don't know what, she was pulling out way too fast for me to do anything. But nevertheless, I think if you treat, and what I tend to do now, because you're a little bit higher up on a motorbike, and that kind of carried that through now into how I drive a car, is I'm always looking at 2 or 3 cars in front as well. Does that make sense? So if I see a car, 2 cars in front start to slow down and put the brake lights on, I'm anticipating that the car in front of me is going to do the same, similar. So I'm already touching the brakes or feathering them before. Anyway, you don't want to listen about how I drive a bloody car, do you? Christ almighty, talk about boring. The question is, am I going to get another motorbike? And the answer is, of course. Yes, of course I'm going to get another motorbike, and you are going to hear me before you see me. And talking of hearing me, I think you've heard enough of me for 1 week, don't you? So I think I'll call it a day for this week. Just goes to say, as usual, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. It really does mean a lot. And as usual, I'm completely blown away by the amount of feedback I'm getting off people saying how much they enjoy the show. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and taking the time to give me some feedback on how I'm doing. It means so much to me. It's absolutely fantastic. And like as usual, if anything resonates with you, or you feel that you've got something in common, just feel free to DM me. We'll have a chat. Come and see me in town. We'll have a chat. It's all good. It's all good. So I think, oh yeah, adverts. As you can see from this week, we had a new sponsor. So if anybody else would like to have me sponsor their show. Is that right? No, they're sponsoring my show. But if anyone else would like to get in touch and see how much it might cost them to have me. Do you know what? If you want me to sponsor your I can't get this right. If you want me to sponsor your business on my show, DM me. And after that, fuck up. I don't think anyone will they? So, anyway, thanks again and for listening, and from me and everybody here at the Caravan of Love, which is basically just me. I'll see you all next week. Thanks, guys. Love you all. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, Teddy Tim has left the building.